For this first essay, you'll be writing a rhetorical analysis based on a movie speech or a historical speech, and then explain how it's related to today's culture or today's society. You're going to examine the effectiveness of a popular movie or historical speech. This essay will help develop your analytical skills by applying them to a rhetorical analysis. Rhetorical analysis examines the use of persuasive techniques and their effectiveness, basically saying that the speaker uses different types of techniques to persuade their audience. And what you guys are going to be determining is what those techniques are in the speech and if they are effective for the audience, the intended audience. So what you're going to do is analyze. You are not summarizing. You're not summarizing a movie in here. You're focusing specifically on a movie speech or a historical speech. And I have provided two websites here that you will pull your speech from. And American Rhetoric movie speeches, here's the website for that. And then there's another one called Film Site. So there's a website for that one too. And you can go to either one of these and just kind of search and see what speeches that they have, historical or movie, in there that you'd like to write about. Your particular speech has to come from one of these websites. It cannot come from anything else. So please be sure to choose a speech from one of these websites. The essay guidelines. This is a 2 to 3 page paper, which means that this paper must at least be 2 full pages. The third page will be your works cited page. Only the speech source from one of the 2 links above should be referenced, which means you'll only have one source cited on your works cited page, and it will be the speech. While MLA does indicate that when you are using just one source, no citations are needed, students will still need to cite this source both on the works cited page and that same source within your essay whenever you use quotes from it. It just keeps students in the practice of citing in both places in preparation for the rest of the semester. And on the next page, we'll look at some citation information. The paper must have an introduction with a thesis statement. It needs to have at least 3 well-developed body paragraphs, and then you'll have a concluding paragraph. Please see all of the sample resources, sample essay, sample outline, all of those in Moodle. They will be very helpful to you, and if you look at all of them, and also within the PowerPoint, the rhetorical analysis PowerPoint, please view all of those resources because they will help you as you are writing this paper. In your introduction, you should start out with an attention grabber, then make sure you connect to the next sentence. Summarize what's happening in the movie or in history, this time in history if you chose a historical speech. Make sure you give a little bit of a summary, a couple sentences telling what's happening that motivated the speech, that motivated or was the purpose for giving the speech. So like for instance, if you wanted to write about George W. Bush's speech post 9/11, you will look at the context and explain the context of what just happened. And the context would be that terrorist attacks took place on American soil in New York, in Washington, in Pennsylvania, and this prompted the president to provide a speech to the nation to address the situation and also encourage and provide comfort. So that would be given a summary. The last sentence of your introduction paragraph will be your thesis statement, which will assert whether the speech is effective and why or how it relates to contemporary American culture today. 3 body paragraphs is what you should have. And whenever you're looking at the different types of persuasive techniques used in the speech and why they're effective, you're going to look at the rhetorical appeals. And there's a link in Moodle that provides this information. And like I said, all of you should have already looked over the PowerPoint on the rhetorical analysis that also goes over this. And you'll want to analyze, logos, ethos, and pathos that are used in the speech that you chose. You could discuss other persuasive techniques used, like the repetition of wording. It could be the setting is very important to the overall message of the speech, so forth. I mean, there could be many different other techniques used, but if the speech you choose uses all three appeals, if they all three use ethos, logos, and pathos, then you can write all three of your body paragraphs about those. One will be on ethos, one will be on logos, and one will be on pathos. And then you'll give examples of ethos, logos, and pathos used in the speech, and then explain why it was important, why it helped the speech to be more effective, and why the audience really listened and hung on to every word of the speaker because of using those persuasive techniques. And then you definitely need to include quotes, specific quotes from the speech to support each of your ideas. So if you're going to write about logos and that the speaker uses logos in his or her speech, then you definitely want to give a couple quotes that give an example of that, where they use logic. Or, same thing with pathos. Where did they use emotional speech? Give a specific quote. But anytime you use a quote, you need to cite it. And I'm going to show you on this next page how to cite these two websites, the speeches that you get from those. And then, of course, do not forget to write a separate conclusion. You definitely need a conclusion paragraph. It's kind of like a hamburger paper where you have your top bun, your introduction, you have your bottom bun, which is your conclusion, and then you have your three body paragraphs in the middle, which is all the good stuff, your hamburger, your lettuce, tomato, pickles, onions, whatever. So look at it that way, and you have to have all those parts of a really solid essay. Rules for writing this paper: no contractions. And I put some examples here. Don't, won't, can't, your, it's. Please be sure to write those out. Contractions are considered informal writing, and they're not allowed in academic writing. So please, let's break that habit and avoid contractions in all of our essays. There's no first person and no second person. So you can't use I, me, my, us, we, our, and don't refer to the reader either by using you, yourself, you are. Refrain from using any of those. Use MLA format. Please see the video and all the documents and resources in Moodle that show you how to set up an MLA essay and how to cite an MLA essay. Be sure to proofread and edit for grammar errors before you click that submit button. It's very important. You're going to submit a rough draft, and then you're going to submit, or a first draft, and then you're going to submit a final draft. It's very important that you do your best effort, give your best effort on that first draft so that you can have the best grade possible, because that grade will be averaged in with your final draft. I will give specific feedback on the first drafts, and then you go in and make the changes and then submit your final draft. Changes have to be made. You cannot submit the same essay with no corrections. Corrections have to be made. If they're not made, then you may experience more point deduction. So please be careful with that. Be sure to document and cite the one source on that works cited page, which is your speech. Not citing the source will mean major point deduction. So please, it is very important that you cite sources in both places. The source on your works cited page, and cite that source anytime you use quotes from the speech within your essay. Okay, here is an example of what your citation should look like. So if we use, if you decide you want to use the American Rhetoric website, if you want to find your speech, or if you find a good speech in that one that you want to use, then here's how you would cite that speech from that source. Okay, so right here it says, in the body of the paper, use the publisher's name in parentheses when citing direct quotes. Ed Muller is the actual publisher. He's the compiler of all of these videos and speeches in this website. So any person using the American Rhetoric website, no matter what speech it is, when they cite their speech within their essay, everyone is going to have Ed Muller or Ed Muller. So just keep that in mind. That is your in-text citation right here. Now on the works cited page, you'll have, of course, Ed Muller, Michael E. Look at the punctuation marks. Everything has to be the same. You'll have American Rhetoric, movie speech. Now, I've put an example in here. This is from Legally Blonde, but you will definitely make sure you make changes that fit the specific speech that you chose. So if you are writing about Legally Blonde, you can just copy and paste this one. But if you're not writing about the Legally Blonde speech, then you definitely need to make the changes. You'll change the speech name, and then everything else will be the same except for the link down here. So everything will be the same. Change your speech name and then put the correct URL to your speech here. But it should look just like this, punctuation and italics and all. So this is only if you're using the American Rhetoric website. If you are using the film site website, in the body of your paper, use the publisher's name in parentheses when citing direct quotes. Now, for instance, when you pull up a film site and you find a speech, like the Footloose speech came from there, the sample that I provided in Moodle. So the actual, I think the guy's name his last name is Pitchford. And it says it underneath the speech in the website, film site, it'll have the screenwriter's name. And so if you look at the sample essay I provided in Moodle, it has Pitchford as the screenwriter's last name anytime I use quotes from the Footloose clip. The works cited will look like this. Now, you'll have the screenwriter's last name, comma, first name, period, the name of the movie speech, and then the best film speeches and monologues. That's the large work. That's the website. And then you have the URL. And again, if you go to the Footloose sample essay that I provided in Moodle, you'll see an example of a filled out citation from this website. So again, this gives you exactly what you need to do for each of your citations using whichever website you chose your speech from. So if you didn't choose your speech from American Rhetoric, then you're going to focus on this down here at Film Site. If you chose American Rhetoric, you're not going to worry about this down at Film Site. Look specifically at what I've written here. Look at punctuation. Look at formatting. It should look exactly like it. Okay. Now, I did list down to the very bottom of the essay instructions some popular historical speeches or movie speeches that students have written about in the past. Now, you cannot write about the Footloose movie speech because I provided that as a sample for the class. So, no one should write about that one. But Independence Day is a good one. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech is a popular one. The movie Remember the Titans, George Bush's post 9/11, Friday Night Lights, A Few Good Men, 10 Things I Hate About You, Saving Private Ryan, Princess Diaries, The Patriot, Radio, Sully, The Family Man, To Kill a Mockingbird, Legally Blonde, My Cousin Vinny. And I also provided another sample that's in the PowerPoint that's from the movie A Time to Kill. And you cannot write about that one either, again, because I used it as a sample for this particular module. So I've listed a couple down here. It doesn't mean you have to write about any of these. You may choose to write about another movie speech that you find in one of those websites. But these are just some of the most popular that students like to write about. So if you have specific questions about this essay, please be sure to contact me. Don't wait or don't feel like your questions are stupid. I need you to contact me if you have any questions. But once you have viewed the PowerPoint and all the resources provided in Moodle, and then you read the instructions here, it will make your writing experience so much easier if you look at the samples and see how they're formatted and see how they're written. Again, let me know if you have any questions whatsoever. Thank you.